Welcome back to the Faculty Factory podcast, now in the lovely, enchanting island of Galveston in the big state of Texas. That's right, folks. The Faculty Factory has moved from Johns Hopkins to the University of Texas Medical Branch, and I'm looking at our beloved President and CEO, Dr. Jochen Reiser. Hi, Jochen.
Hi, Kim. It's wonderful to be with you today.
Well, thank you so much for supporting the Faculty Factory podcast. We are a community sharing tools to build leaders. And we are in the 6th year of the Faculty Factory podcast, more than 120,000 downloads from 90 listeners in 99 countries. The website has drawn half a 100,000 web visits from users in 122 countries. The 3 free ebooks on the facultyfactory.org website have been downloaded nearly, a couple 3,000 times. So there's lots of resources on the facultyfactory.org. Dr. Reiser is supporting now the Faculty Factory podcast. So we're looking forward to many more years of building, again, a global community of leaders in academic medicine and academic health systems. So again, Dr. Reiser is here with us. He is an MD, PhD. He's a physician scientist who started off in the Black Forest. He's made his way through a number of states in our country, and he is now here leading the University of Texas Medical Branch. And innovation is his key word and favorite word. And so I've asked Dr. Reiser to kind of help us as leaders and future leaders learn from his wisdom of how we make decisions. How do we make transition decisions? How do we decide to move and strategize what we're going to do and then how we implement? So again, thank you, Dr. Reiser. Why don't you just take it away and lay it on us?
Wonderful. Well, again, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me. And we're so excited, Kim, to have you at UTMB and bring all your wisdom here and build on this podcast and on so many other programs. Well, it's true. I started out in Germany, and there's something very peculiar about the German system. And that is when you go through medical school, you end up not graduating as an MD, you graduate as a physician. You have the same rights, you can see patients, you can do everything. But in order to get the MD letters that everybody kind of wants, at least when you're young and up and coming, you have to do a research project. And that typically goes 3 to 4 months. And then you get your MD thesis stamp and you graduate with an MD. And so in my case, that's why I ended up at molecular biology, cell biology laboratory around kidney disease and kidney cell cultures and molecular biology. And I loved it so much that I extended my 3 to 4 months to a full 5-6 year PhD. And so that really changed my life. And I would say if it weren't for that part of the German curriculum, of that demand, of that need, of that system setup, I would probably not have come to the United States, because with that research in my backpack, I was invited to go to Albert Einstein College at the Bronx and do a postdoc. And who does not fall in love with New York? And then from there, I decided to really come here and into the United States and do my internal medicine residency, which I did at Einstein, and then followed by nephrology fellowship at Mass General and Brigham in Boston. And again, based on that research on kidney disease and kidney cells that I've done. And from there, I went to University of Miami and then Rush and now UTMB. So I would say that was a very important element, this exposure to early research and early education. And early, I mean very early in one's life, because that's when we are most impressionable. And we know this, things come easy for children and young adults. We just learn fast. And that became my true North Star. And I followed it always. And whenever there was a better opportunity, I made a move. So that's one part. I think the other part, Kim, is you ask me how I make decisions. Perhaps when do I take off from one place and go to the other? I'm grateful, and I mean this truly, to all the places that I've been, because each of the places had different strengths. At Harvard, I would say undoubtedly it was the academic component, but perhaps the patient care and how we educate people and how we somewhat came together was not perhaps the best I've seen. I saw more of that at the University of Miami, where everybody was so excited. It was a fantastic young faculty life together and a lot of support with each other. And that's where innovation was in capital letters. And that was great to learn. And then at Rush in Chicago, it was the patient care. Because ultimately in academic healthcare, that's what we do. We want to make people better. And so I said to myself, one day, if I can make it to an institution where I have significant leadership position, then I want to bring all of these missions together, right? The academic side, but also the community side and how we have faculty affairs and student life and innovation, but also then again, patient care. And I think we are trying to do this, and we're doing this well here at UTMB. So whenever I felt I'm being done with one part of or with one of those four missions at a place, and I can really make a higher dent or higher mark, I should say, then I feel like I need to move on. And so finally, I found that institution where all those four domains, all four missions are treated equally. And that's why I'm so happy to be here. And I think you have gotten a glimpse of that in your first several months of employment here.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that journey. I love how you paint this picture of your having purposely sought out opportunities to make a difference. And it sounds like it all landed in there like a puzzle piece. So what would you maybe tell early career faculty members who are just getting into our industry, or even mid-career faculty, maybe who are in a bit of a, when that groove becomes a rut, maybe a little bit of the mid-career malaise? What would you say to them to spark curiosity, to reinvigorate a vision and a hope for making an impact in a deeper or a broader way? What lessons might you impart to them?
I would say stay true to your mission, stay true to your passion, how you started out. And if this lies in patient care, then find a place that values patient care, but also has the other components of an academic career and institution. Because ultimately, we need all components: research, education, clinical care, and innovation. But stay true to what brought you there to begin with. And you mentioned a word, sort of like our mid-career malaise, or where we get a little hazy. And perhaps another word would be we get a little bit too comfortable. We have, and now family life comes on top of it, and we have other issues to deal with. And it's very easy and understandable so to settle and say, you know what, that's it. I just can't do more. And it's okay if I'm not really that happy. And I think we need to resist that, because I've seen several people who I thought were outstanding sort of like settle for that part and never really came back out happily from it. And I have not done that.
Mhm.
Now, have I done everything right? No, of course not. Nobody does. But I made research my true north. And that was certainly a guide for me that helped me through the institutions. But I also, as I said earlier, I learned to acknowledge the other parts and how important they are. And ultimately, they all need to come together. And then you need to ask yourself from time to time, by looking in the mirror, is this still the place where I truly want to be part of this place's mission? And it's a hard answer sometimes, but be honest to yourself. And if the answer is no, or I'm not so sure, it's really time to then take a look.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Reiser. So this is going deep into our roots, making sure that we revisit that which brings us joy and lights our brain and grows our heart. And what about if someone loses their true north? So if I start off and I really want to do patient care, and then maybe I find myself not as enamored with that, what would you tell someone who maybe has lost sight of their true north or feel that that has changed?
I think, first of all, it's important that we recognize it. There are many reasons why our professional lives get complicated. It might be the institution, it might be us ourselves, it might be something else in the family or a health related issue. There might be many reasons that can impact on that. And I think it's very important that we pause and truly find that out. But the other part is if, let's say, clinical care gets so burdensome, then it's really important that we step back and perhaps connect back to the next generation. That's what I do. I like to go and talk to students because I find it so refreshing to see young and upcoming minds and where they are going. And one would be very surprised, or maybe not so, that they really seek out our opinions. And I get reinvigorated from that. So, but it's a great example, Kim, to make use of all the resources we have at an academic medical institution.
Mhm.
We don't just have our office and our office staff and our faculty, we have students, we have learners, we have institutional help, whether it's a wellness office or perhaps faculty affairs office, just the one that you're co-heading. But let's make use of this ecosystem that we do have at academic medical centers and
Mhm.
academic universities. And that means re-engaging in other domains, and that can re-energize us.
Rich ecosystem. That's great. I remember when I was interviewing here, Jochen, and you talked about how at this stage of our careers, it's not as much about ego anymore, that ego doesn't matter. That maybe when we're younger, and those of people who are listening to this podcast may be thinking, well, it's okay when you've reached and achieved all the successes in life and you've gone up the ladder and you've gone from being an assistant professor to a chair to a president. But what about, the people who are thinking, I'm still trying to get to that point of earning the promotions and the titles and the roles. And so the blessing of people at our stage is we don't have anything to prove, if you will, in terms of satisfying our ego. We can be more selfless and more curious and humble. So I love how you're tying this all back to the academy. We're in academia, that has that legacy of people who are being curious. And so we can learn humbly from others, other gifts that we have to share and other ways we can grow ourselves. So I like how you're bringing that back full circle as a way to re-energize.
Yeah, I think it's important, Kim, that we are not just running against the wall or trying to go through the wall if things don't go as well as we think they should. Let's say there's a research project and I'm just not making the ultimate progress. We have to step back a moment and we have to take a different approach. And one of the approaches that I have taken, and I think successfully so, I collaborated a lot. I collaborated when I was a student, a resident, and a faculty, and I do a lot of collaborations today. And I would say, because people ask me, so, but when you're a postdoc, then a lot of people might take advantage of you and you do some work for others and you're not getting recognized. And I would say that looking back, that did happen to me perhaps once or twice over, I don't know, 300 projects that I was involved with. But I also, on the flip side, was recognized probably 20 or 40 times more than I should on other projects, just by where I felt like this is not doing so much for a project, and yet I'm perhaps an author or acknowledged. And so on balance, I would say that collaborating with others, whether it's on another research project or on the educational side, or even on the clinical side, it's very rewarding and people recognize that, and it's joyful.
Mhm.
Whatever we do, we need to try and keep the joy in practicing medicine and in doing our studies. And if that's gone, if the joy is going downwards and not upwards, then we got to redirect. And let's not be afraid of that, because it is very normal in a long and winding career in academia that we have to redirect.
Mhm.
And I think that is one way of doing it, through collaborating and connecting with others in this rich ecosystem that actually universities do have.
That's wonderful. And I really like, and I'd like to underscore what you just said about the on balance and not keeping score. And trusting the path, that things will work out in the end. And yes, we may get burned a couple areas, but on balance, that if we stay true and authentic and do what our gifts are, where we've been led to do, that things will work out. Now, let's talk about, if you don't mind, what, through all your leadership careers, when do you know when things are going wrong? And how do you recalibrate? Can you think of a couple times to share with us when that bell went off and you said, okay, wait a minute, I need to pull back or cut anchor or pull up here. This is maybe the wrong team, the wrong project. I've made a mistake here. I have a lesson, or it's like in pickleball parlance, it's not winners and losers, it's winners and learners. So when have you learned that, oh, this is a point to myself. I want to make sure I don't do this again. So how do you know, as someone at your level, how do you know when things are going sideways?
That's a great question. I'm still not sure I always know it, but I probably know it better than 10, 20 years ago. I have become a much better listener.
Mm.
And I listen even in areas where I consider myself perhaps the expert, right? So when it comes to molecular science, I feel like I have a lot of knowledge. That's what I've done from early days on. Yet I find myself listening to a student or a resident or a junior professor with a good idea, and I truly listen to it. And often I find myself, well, I don't know everything, and it's great. So certainly train to listen. That's very important. The other part is understanding our weaknesses more than our strength.
Mm.
I think we all know what our strengths are by now. There is no question. If I have to impress a friend with a cooked meal, I know exactly which 3 meals I can cook, and I know exactly which 5 of them I won't cook. But when it comes to describe our own weaknesses, it's not so easy. And so I get some help, whether it's through reading or professional help, understanding our weaknesses and really eliminating them or marginalizing them. It's very important. And then the third part, and I think this is probably more related to what you were asking, is when do you pull the trigger? When do you redirect from a project or the approach? And I think the warning signs when they line up. So when you hear the same story consistent through different lenses, perhaps from 1, 2 independent voices, when the data speaks loud and clear, and when the signals are there, and you've given it some time, and sometime it could mean a month, it could mean half a year. But there is a time when all those elements come together, and then it's like literally being in a car and you see the accident happening, and we would all respond to it by turning the wheel, and we have to do exactly the same when we lead, because this is what leaders do. We do take the information and we do act. So never confuse being a leader with sort of like just keep observing and hope for the better. That's just
Mm.
not how it works.
That's really good advice, Dr. Reiser. Could we pivot just a minute? I know that you love innovation. Could you speak to the importance of innovation at the micro level, if you will, here at UTMB, and placing innovation in a larger system, in a Texas system? So how did you know what needs to be innovative, and how you place that in a larger ecosystem of a University of Texas, which is so huge?
Yeah, great question. Well, I think that the classical role of a scientist or physician or nurse uh, is still providing care for patients or doing laboratory research for the sake of investigating fundamental understandings of biology. However, our world has diversified when it comes to the demands and the products and the needs. And I think innovation is the key word that helps us to bring discoveries to people. And I think of no other place that is better suited than doing just that than a university.
Right.
The problem is that or the issue to solve, I should say, is when we are innovating at a university, we need to cross over from a non-for-profit sector to a for-profit sector, because then there's investment in innovation and products, and there's a different value proposition, and that needs to be managed. So one needs to set up a structure that allows for that to happen. And that is a process that takes some time. We are well underway at UTMB. We have an innovation center, we have an accelerator, which is sort of like the bridge between discovery and very early stages. We educate our students differently so they understand the value of innovation and the thinking of innovation, right, Kim? You know, everybody's excited to have a discovery in the lab, but not every great discovery is a new innovation. And that doesn't make the discovery smaller. It's just it depends what's needed in the world, and whether that particular part can be translated to a product or not. And so there's a different learning process for our constituents that have to happen, and we have began to build curricula that address that. The other part is it's long-term setting our financial future, because it only takes one or two successful products that can really bring a large amount of alternative revenue stream into an academic university that then can be reinvested for other things that typically cost money, such as bigger educational programs or different learning institutions, new buildings, all of that. And so I think it's absolutely required that we do this. Now, why in Texas? Well, Texas is a wealthy state. I think that's fair to say. We have a huge oil and mineral gas wealth that is directly related to some of the public universities. For example, the University of Texas system with all its 14 institutions, or Texas A&M. We are getting support through funds that are provided by the state of Texas, and revenues that are coming largely from oil and gas and minerals, that then can be redeployed in education and training. And so it is only, it makes only sense that in Texas there is a strong demand for innovation and novel developments. And so this state just suits very well for that. It's called the third coast in many other ecosystems. So we have the East Coast, of course, and I would say the biotech hub right now might be Cambridge. And then on the West Coast, you have Silicon Valley. And then there's the third coast, and that's really Texas. And in particular, the Texas Medical Center, where so many institutions are coming together. There's a huge ecosystem of innovation. And it's very fitting for Texas because of its financial strength to make investments into that sector, but then also be at the forefront of bringing novel innovations and products to the people who live in Texas and beyond. So I was very pleased when I looked at Texas that indeed what I had suspected, that there is a high demand and willingness to invest in innovation, is truly the case here. So couldn't be more happy than having innovation being part of UTMB.
Wow, it's wonderful. Dr. Reiser, your persona is very, how should I say this? Optimistic. You're energetic. You have good presence. You're always smiling. You seem like you're very optimistic, forward-thinking. You just bring all this charismatic energy. What would you say is currently like delighting you and exciting you? In addition, personally, maybe as you're growing as a leader and thinking of accomplishments, you just recently celebrated. Gosh, is it already? It's been over a year, right?
Over a year, yeah, over a year.
Yeah,
Year and
only a
3
year is
months.
so much in a year. What is delighting you, if you will?
Well, you know what it is? I think the energy and excitement that you described, that I apparently have, according to you, and thank you for that compliment. I see the same in the people that came here from the outside, including you. And I see the same in students and young faculty who going through the ranks and files here at UTMB. We have a great culture at this university. We help each other. We have a strong sense for the community. And we happen to be the oldest medical university and nursing university west of Mississippi. So I feel a lot of that original spirit and the tradition is coming back to life in very strong ways. And perhaps in part or to a large part through my start a year and 3 months ago. And that just makes me very happy because I wanted that so badly for UTMB to come back to these glory days that it had many, many years ago. And when the place was hit hard by Hurricane Ike in 2008, when it was questionable whether UTMB will be still in Galveston or not, those were tough days. And this institution and its constituents and the community deserve better. And I think better days perhaps have started. And that makes me very happy to see that I'm part of bringing that to UTMB. So that makes me certainly very proud. The other part is I see many challenges in healthcare, whether it's access to care, equity, whether it's caring for people who don't have the financial strength at the same level than others who have much more means. This is where UTMB can really shine. We have such a large network of clinics that we can bring best medicine and best education, not just to urban communities, but we can bring them into the small towns, into the small villages of Southeast Texas, and can be a role model of an institution, how we can do that. And that brings me back to my memories and upbringings in a small village in the Black Forest. So the circle closes again. That makes me happy to be part of an institution that I call has a 360-degree mission. And I hope it's going to continue. I don't mind being happy. And if it lasts for another several years, all for it.
Oh, Dr. Reiser, I love your story, and that's exactly what I was thinking at your town hall when you talked about running the 3 blocks to your school back home in Germany, and how now you're so close to school as well, to the campus here. And I've heard you say the word community at least 8 or 10 times, and that's very evident that feeling of community and we-ness and togetherness and family is really important to you. And so to me, if I was going to ask you, like, if you looking back on your childhood, but I think I can see that full circle, and you just answered that community and togetherness is what that sparks that curiosity and the commitment to service of the community. So I appreciate that story and your words. And I guess I'll just leave the final piece out to you, Dr. Reiser, if you'd like to say anything to all the faculty members and deans and people in faculty affairs listening to this podcast right now. I'll let you have the final word, Dr. Reiser.
Oh, well, wonderful, Kim. I really enjoyed talking to you and with you about university life and how to make it better for faculty. I think what I'm so impressed by is at my stage now, being a president and CEO, that there's so many like-minded colleagues out there. And we talk to each other just like we were assistant professors or students. We seek for help and advice. And I would say, and that perhaps is something I want to let others know who are on the way up, perhaps to the highest positions in academic medicine and universities. We haven't changed in that. It's not that one arrives and now everything is perfect. We continue to be part of a conversation with each other. We continue to have questions and we don't always know the answer, but we feel secure enough and have learned with unknown territory to fully engage in the process, to make decisions when we have listened and we see issues. And I think all of us in those positions, including myself, we still have our true north. And we probably never lost it. And that helped us all the way through. So I would say, whatever that is for you, keep that. And whatever you can do to be more part of an ecosystem by asking questions, collaborating, and reaching out, I can guarantee you this will come back to you in a very positive way.
Thanks for tuning in to the Faculty Factory podcast. We are a faculty development community sharing tools to build academic leaders in healthcare. Maybe you want to be interviewed on the podcast? Please visit facultyfactory.org/contact and send me a message there. The Faculty Factory podcast and website is sponsored by the Office of Faculty Affairs at the University of Texas Medical Branch in Galveston, Texas.